Congressman Eric Swalwell is a Democrat from California. He's a member of the House Intelligence Committee and the Judiciary Committee, and he joins me now. Congressman, I don't think anyone would deny this is a very big, a significant step. What is your reaction to it?
Shouldn't their oath have been enough, Chris? Every citizen's responsibility when they witness a crime is to cooperate with authorities. This is the greatest crime against the Constitution we've ever seen, the most amount of arrests ever for a single act. And these individuals have information. And so shouldn't their oath to the office that they serve when they raised their right hand and were sworn in on January 3, just 3 days before the insurrection, shouldn't that have been enough? And it clearly wasn't. They were asked to come in voluntarily. They refused to do so. And drastic times call for drastic measures. This was a day that we nearly lost our democracy, our freedom, our right to vote and have that vote mean something. And if they don't want to cooperate, then we're going to have to press them with legal subpoenas.
Yeah, I mean, there's always the don't make a threat you can't back up question, too, right? So now there's legal subpoenas issued. You know, if those subpoenas are safely ignored, as appears to have happened with, say, Mark Meadows, right, who was subpoenaed, was cooperating, stopped cooperating, was criminally referred to the Department of Justice. Nothing has been forthcoming. We don't know why that is, but it hasn't happened. Do you vitiate the power of the House to enforce its subpoenas if that's the situation you end up in here?
Well, Chris, again, if they're not going to honor the subpoena, then I think the committee's already shown that they're willing to keep pressing forward. So that could mean, yes, a civil case, go up the courts with a civil case, or it could mean a criminal referral. It could also mean a referral to the ethics committee. I think they have a number of options, but most importantly, if they don't honor it, it means that they have something to hide. It's an inference of guilt, and in a civil case, it would be used against them that the only reason that they're not coming forward, because an innocent person would, is because they have information that they want to conceal.
There's also this question, right, about the shoe being on the other foot, and this has always been sort of hanging over all of this, right? The idea is that what binds the decisions a majority makes is the fact that it knows it won't always be in the majority. We've seen Congress and the House move back and forth several times in the last 15, 20 years. And there's this threat that keeps happening, despite the fact that I think there's a real asymmetrical situation where you have like active insurrectionists in one party and not in the other, that punishment of their more aberrant members is going to be revisited upon the Democrats if, the tables turn. This is McCarthy threatening to strip you of your committee assignments back when the House voted to strip the committee assignments from Marjorie Taylor Greene and Paul Gosar. McCarthy replied when asked, yes, McCarthy replied when asked if that meant he will use standard Democrats as created by stripping Marjorie Taylor Greene and Paul Gosar of their committee assignments to remove Swalwell from Intelligence and Homeland Security committees. How do you think about the sort of threat of it's going to be even worse when we have the majority?
Yeah, they're going to do that anyway. And I told January 6th committee members before this decision was made was that I hope you don't believe you're protecting me or Mr. Schiff or Ms. Omar by not doing the right thing here because you don't want them to do that to me or anyone else in the future. They're going to do that anyway, and I go into that with eyes wide open. But if the shoe were on the other foot and Republicans were in power, we're already out of balance as a country. We're already in a position now where they would not allow another peaceful transition of power. They would try and write the laws in a way that they would never have to give up power, and they may not certify Donald Trump's. They may decertify the next time Donald Trump wins and have the votes to do it. And that really concerns me more than what retaliatory measures they would take against me or any of my colleagues.
What do you think the goal, you're not on the committee, so you're sort of 1 foot in, 1 foot out, but what should the ultimate goal here be in this next month as we approach the public hearings?
To tell the story of what happened with witnesses who can animate that for the public as to how close we came to losing our democracy, who was responsible. Kevin McCarthy said that Donald Trump admitted responsibility to him. That's why Kevin McCarthy is such an important witness. So who was responsible? What actions did Donald Trump take leading up to this? What did he know about violence that was going to occur? What actions did he not take that could have protected this from happening, could have protected the lives that were injured that day? And then what is the plan, knowing that Republicans are more comfortable with violence than voting going forward, to make sure that a day like this never happens again?